What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Now, this is a fight that I was really looking forward to ever since the Ben Askren fight. Honestly, I had no clue who was going to win the Askren versus Jake fight, but I was rooting for Askren, and when I found out that Tyron was in Askren's corner, and there was like that locker room confrontation type thing that they had going on with Tyron and Jake Paul's team. But it just kind of made sense for him to, want to fight Jake Paul next, and especially since Jake Paul's a pretty big name. He gave Askren his biggest payday of his career. It'd be nice for Tyron to get some of that too. So it makes sense for Jake Paul to fight Tyron because it's kind of like a redemption arc for Tyron, and for Jake, it's it's showing that he actually does have some skill in boxing if he were to be able to beat Tyron. So I'm gonna go over who I think is going to win this fight, and I'm gonna give my reasons for why I think this person is going to win or lose. So let's go over Jake first. Now, when it comes to Jake, there are a lot of unknowns. We don't know if he has the cardio to go into the later rounds. All of his boxing matches so far, except for the one of his very first ones, I think it actually was his very first boxing match, was against Deji. That one went for about 9 rounds, I believe. I don't know if they were 2 minute or 3 minute rounds, but I think that one did go the distance, I believe. I don't think that he got a TKO on Deji for that fight, but for that fight, that's the longest that we've seen Jake ever fight for, and that was literally like his first boxing match ever. So it's hard to say whether or not he actually has the cardio to be able to go farther because I'm pretty sure he has grown in size over that time. And, all of his fights since then have all been like 1 or 2 rounds. I think he knocked out Nate Robinson in the second round, and he knocked out Ben Askren in like 20 seconds or something like that. So we don't really know if he has the ability to go the distance, but what we do know is that he does have knockout power. So he definitely does have knockout power. He was able to knock out Ben Askren. Not like an actual real knockout. He wasn't out cold, but he did have the ability to knock him down with a punch to the face. So that is something that Jake has going for him. He definitely does have that power, and if he were to catch Woodley with one of those, or a couple of the same hits that he caught Ben with, I think that Woodley would probably go down probably just as easily as Ben, because Ben was always somebody who in the UFC was very durable. Now, of course, he is not in his UFC shape. I don't know if that affects durability or not, but I mean, he did get slammed on his head by Robbie Lawler and then punched repeatedly in the face while he was on the ground, and then he still got up and managed to win that fight. So I was hoping for Ben to last a bit longer than what he did, but I mean, I guess it does kind of go to show that Jake does have that knockout power. If he was able to knock Ben down with a punch like that, especially after all the damage that Ben has taken previously and then managed to get back up from, it does show that he has some power. So I'd say that that is one of the biggest things that he has going for him. Another thing about Jake is that he does have at least some amount of patience and self-awareness when it comes to boxing. He has the ability to pick which punches to throw and pick when to defend and, back off. So he does have some fight IQ there going for him as well, but that's really all that we know about him so far, is that he has the ability to knock someone out, and he also has the ability to have like some basic technique and know when to back off and know when to go in for the kill and stuff like that. So that's really all we know from him. He hasn't really boxed that much. We don't really actually know his boxing ability quite yet. Obviously, he's not the best in the world, but at this point, I think it's safe to say that he's not the worst in the world either. But I'm hoping in this fight we actually do get to see how good of a fighter he is, and the fight doesn't just end right away. Even if it ended with Jake Paul getting knocked out in the first round, I would still like to see how good of a boxer he is. So whichever guy you're rooting for, I think I would want it to go at least a little bit into the later rounds, but I would still hope for a knockout because that's always the most entertaining thing. But yeah, let's move on to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley is somebody who is a bit easier to study because he has so many more fights. He has been in fights that have gone the distance. He's knocked people out as well as being knocked out himself, so we kind of know where his limitations are. But that's all in terms of MMA. Those were all MMA fights that we have of him. We don't actually have any boxing fights from him. He is not an actual boxer. He is another UFC fighter. He's another MMA fighter. But unlike Ben Askren, he's not the worst striker in the UFC. In fact, it's probably one of his strong points is striking. That might be his strongest point. It's being a heavy hitter. He is a very heavy hitter. If you watch his highlight reel for, you can just do a quick YouTube search of his highlight reel for his entire career in the UFC. A lot of his highlights are of him knocking people out with punches. And all of Ben's highlights, I mean, there's not one that has him knocking someone out. There's not even one of him landing a clean shot on somebody that wobbled him in his highlight reel. All of his highlights are choking people out and submitting them. So Ben was absolutely not uh, prepared in terms of boxing. He doesn't have any boxing background at all. He's only wrestling. That is his one aspect. So, but Tyron is a different story, and he can actually strike. He can actually hit really hard. He has knockout power. I'm pretty sure he's stronger than Jake Paul is, and he's definitely knocked out more people than Jake Paul. He's knocked out people that are harder to knock out. So overall, when you look at their backgrounds, Jake Paul, who has he really fought? Well, the first of all, he's fought two YouTubers. Both were way smaller than him. Both had way shorter reaches. He had the weight advantage, the reach advantage, and the height advantage, and they were both YouTubers that he fought, and this was their first fight ever. He also fought a like 40-year-old, 40-something-year-old retired basketball player, and he knocked him out. So I guess good job, but not really not really an impressive person to knock out when it's a retired basketball player. And then finally he knocked out Ben Askren, who again is a retired wrestler, not even a retired boxer, but when it comes to Woodley, he is stepping up another level. Woodley this time he's still retired, by the way, but at least this time he's a retired UFC fighter who is really good at striking. So we're going to see how he's able to deal with Tyron Woodley, somebody who is actually probably the first real challenge for Jake Paul. Now when it comes to Tyron Woodley, I can't name all the people that he's fought because there's too many. Jake Paul's only fought like 4 people, so it's kind of easy to remember. But when it comes to Tyron Woodley, he's actually knocked out people who are really good at fighting. He's actually knocked out people who they themselves are good strikers as well. He's knocked out real fighters before. He's knocked out real dangerous people, and Jake Paul has not done that yet. So I think Tyron Woodley is going to be the first person who you could actually consider to be dangerous that Jake Paul is fighting. But another thing is that Tyron Woodley is 40 years old. Ben Askren is 36, and that's the way that he performed against Jake Paul. He performed terribly against Jake Paul, and a lot of people were saying it was because of his age. He's retired. He got a hip replacement surgery. Um, but he did really bad against Jake Paul. But when it comes to Tyron Woodley, I think Tyron has stayed in shape even after retirement. Obviously not in as good of shape as he was in his prime, but he has still stayed in relatively good shape compared to Ben Askren. So I think that the age, although it is going to play a factor in the fight, I don't think that it's going to be as big of a disadvantage, even though he is older than Ben Askren was when he fought Jake. But at the end of the day, there are just so many unknowns, particularly on Jake's side, that make it pretty hard to determine who is going to be the actual winner of this match. Me personally, I'm rooting for Tyron Woodley, but I'm not going to bet on this fight because I just don't know. It's not the picture is not clear enough for me to determine who is actually going to win. You cannot count Jake out because he has been boxing for longer than Tyron has been boxing for. Tyron's also getting trained by Floyd Mayweather, so depending on how good of a coach Mayweather turns out to be, I think that Tyron and Jake is a good matchup. It's exciting. One of the reasons why it's so exciting is because you just don't really know what's going to happen. if Tyron is still got the if he's still got it basically, then he's going to win and he's going to knock Jake out. But uh, if he doesn't have it still and he's not still in good shape and he isn't motivated, then I think Jake's going to knock him out. But I do think that the fight is going to end in a knockout. It might wind up being luck because it is a fight, and at the end of the day, anything can happen in a fight. So maybe they're going to come in there, they're going to be completely evenly matched, and one's going to knock out the other, and it's basically just going to be luck. But you know, I'm hoping for Tyron to come out with the win for this one. I'm rooting for him. But if Jake Paul does end up knocking him out, then I won't really be that surprised because, again, he is retired. He is 40 years old, and this is his first boxing match. He was never a boxer in his life, so it's really interesting to see. But yeah, if I had to choose, I would probably choose Tyron Woodley for the winner. But again, I'm not betting on this one, so I really don't know. I really can't say. But yeah, if I had to bet, I would bet on Tyron. I'm rooting for him. I hope he wins, but we're going to see. So, yeah, that's my take on this fight. That's my take on who's going to win. If I had to choose, Tyron Woodley, but I really don't know. There's so many unknowns. So, yeah, that's about it. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.